What's going on, everybody? Myth here, back with another video. Today we have a PvE build. I had somebody asking me about what to run in the night market because they were having trouble, with staying alive. Now, this build isn't going to keep you alive 100% of the times. You do need to have a healer for most things, but this build is kind of what I use for solo play, like whether it be farming bosses in Imperial City or any of the like solo veteran dungeons, like I guess like Maelstrom or like arenas, I guess. This is what I use. This is the build I use. So I'm not a PvE god or anything like that. So this is just what I used, and this is what works for me. And it helps me stay alive because it's not min-max for a ton of damage or like straight damage. There is some survivability with trying to still be able to fight off PvP players or PvE, like if possible. Um, Boss mechanics and stuff like that. But anyways, let's get right into it. So we are on a Sorcerer. I do have another build that I have been using on my PC, which is a Dragonite, so I'll be dropping that one right after this one, or vice versa, whichever one I guess I put out first. But this is just for those of you who don't have, or if you have a Sorcerer, which a lot of people play Sorcerer, so this build will be for you. And then I'll have another one for Dragonite. I don't play any of the other classes like PvE, so I do have like a mix of like a Dragonite, Arcanist, Nightblade, I think, but it's strictly like PvE, like for doing damage. I tried to bring that in here and do damage, and I'm just dying like instantly. So there needs to be a good balance of damage and survivability. So unless you have like a prog group or like an actual like dedicated group that has like good healers, tanks, but if you're just looking to just join up any group and be able to stay alive and do damage, this will be a pretty good option for you. And it's not like any trial gear, it's not hard gear to get, it's pretty easy. So first things first, we'll get into the skills. So like I said, we are a Sorcerer. We aren't a pure Sorc, we did subclass. So we got Unstable Wall of Storms. This is just an AoE that you put on the ground, and it's going to provide your off balance, which is huge for us. It's going to help us do more damage, and it also does a decent amount of damage. Crit Surge, obviously this is a Sorc staple for PvP and PvE. When you critically deal damage, it's going to heal you, so it's going to give us our Major Brutality and our Major Sorcery, so we're going to do 20% more weapon and spell damage, and we're also going to heal, so this is a staple. No surprise there. Elemental susceptibility, so this is going to be our Major Breach, and this is actually, believe it or not, a pretty good dot. This does on top of giving the breach, like every 7.5 seconds, it applies burning, chilled, and concussion to them, so it's actually pretty good. And then we have our Merciless Resolve. Now, this is going to give us our Major Prophecy and Savagery, so we're going to get extra, weapon and spell crit. But this also is one of the hardest hitting skills in the game, and it's going to heal us when we do damage with this. So this is going to be kind of not your main survivability tool, but with having your unstable wall down while you're doing damage, you're heavy. This is a heavy attack build, by the way. You'll be heavy attacking, so you'll be healing from the unstable walls. You'll be getting the crit surge heals. You'll be healing from this, and then this will give you a nice juicy heal sometimes. When well, not sometimes, every time, but sometimes I save it for like when I'm like half health or I really need it. I don't unless it's 10 stacks. Then I'll just fire it off because I don't want to waste it. But yeah, this will give you a really good heal too. And then this is our burst heal. So this is like the kind of oh crap, if your healer isn't really giving you any heals and stuff like that, this will keep you alive. And since we are a heavy attack build, sustain shouldn't be a problem because you should only have to hit this once or twice, and as long as you get out of dodge, you should be fine, because you have your Merciless Resolve going. When you keep that up, and then you have your Crit Surge healing you when you're doing damage with this and the Unstable Walls and your heavy attack. And then Soul Harvest. Now this is a flex spot. You could run the Atronach. Not Overload. I don't think Overload would be good. You could run the Destro Alt. I don't even have it morphed, so that's why I'm not using it, but that's not a bad option. You could use Meteor, and then put some points into the Mage Guild to get those extra passives too. Get extra max mag and mag recovery, so that wouldn't be bad either. You know, whatever suits you, whatever you kind of want to run. But for damage, like I said, this is really good damage. This will help keep our damage up since we know we're not fully spec'd for like PvE, but fully. We're not min-maxing our damage. This will help us keep that damage up. And you can pop this like so often. It's only costs 60 ultimate, and you can just keep popping this, and it's gonna give you a really good buff. So it's gonna give them major defile. Well, not a buff. It's gonna give them a really good debuff. So it's gonna give them major defile, reducing their healing received and damage shield strength by 12%. And then while slotted on either bar, anytime you kill an enemy, you gain 10 ultimate. So like killing a lot of trash mobs and stuff like that, you can kind of really keep popping this ultimate a lot, and it's just pretty much free damage every, like, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 seconds. Like, it's so quick to get your ultimate back, especially if you're killing a lot of trash mobs and stuff like that out there in Night Market. You can kind of just keep spamming this, and it's really good. So like I said, we are a 1-bar build, so there's no back bar. We are running Oaken Soul. All right, now for I guess I can show the character sheet. So this is what our character sheet looks like. I guess I can buff up. So, like I said, 20k each resistances. It's a PvE build, so I think that's even a lot for PvE. 4,800 weapon and spell damage, pretty good. 46% crit chance, and I mean the recovery doesn't really matter too much. But we got 30k max mag, 28k health, 22k stam. We put all of our points into Magicka to boost that mag up. And we are running the Shadow Mundus, so this goes really well with our set that we're wearing. So we're stacking into crit damage, and it works really well with the Sorc stacking into crit damage. So 53% critical damage, pretty good. And now to the champion points. Now, if you're running this in non-CP Imperial City, farming bosses and stuff like that, obviously the CP won't matter. But for those of you who are using this in solo arenas and the night market, this will be helpful for you to put these on. So Exploiter, 10% more damage done to enemies who are off balance. So that wall of elements is going to put them off balance. So you're going to be getting 10% extra damage done pretty much all the time. 6% damage done from direct damage attacks, which a heavy attack is a direct damage attack. So that's good. Now this is probably one of the most important ones. Weapon expert is going to give us 20% extra damage done for our light and heavy attacks. And since it is a heavy attack build, this is a huge DPS boost. Excuse me, a huge DPS boost right here. Like I said, if you're in non-CP, then obviously you can't use this, but for CP's situations, this is really huge. And then deadly aim, single target damage. Most of our attacks are single target damage, especially that Nightblade Merciless Resolve spec bow, so 6% extra damage there. And now for the red tree. Now this is kind of like a mix-up. I don't know if this is like the best things to run. This is kind of just what I had. So I have Fortified for the extra armor, Boundless Vitality for the extra health, and then I put on Rejuvenation just for extra recovery, because why not? And then this is where you can kind of mix it up. I've been running Thrill of the Hunt, so basically anytime you kill an enemy, you gain Major Expedition for 3 seconds, so you know, I guess 6 seconds on kill, so that's pretty good. You know, it'll help you move around and dodge those like boss AoEs or mob AoEs and stuff like that that you need to kind of get out of. And if you want to just have 10% movement all around extra, then you know, Celerity is not a bad option either. Like I said, I'm not really a big PvEer, so this is what I run. This is what works for me. So you guys can, if you find better CP that you like or you want to put in, that's up to you. And we are a Dark Elf. I don't know. I think Dark Elf is pretty good for damage on a Sorc. So I mean, 1-bar builds, it doesn't really matter. If you want to min-max, you can look up and see what the best is. Dark Elf, I know, does have decent damage because of the skill lines, the passives. So Dark Elf's not a bad option, but I don't think the race actually really matters all too much unless you're really trying to min-max. But this is just for open world PvE and like farming bosses and solo dungeons. So now to the most important part, or the second most important part, I guess, besides the skills, is the gear. So we are running the Sergeant. Now this is pretty much a must run on heavy attack builds, and if you don't know, pretty much the 5 stack is going to make sure your heavy attacks deal an insane amount of damage, and this is kind of what makes the set. So, precise, and you could go Nerd Hone, but you lose out a little bit on damage because obviously, like I said, we're kind of crit focused. So, precise to you know, weigh in heavy on that extra crit damage, and then I just run poisons. You could run whatever. You can run crown lethal, double dot, whatever. Just extra, you know, pushing out extra damage because I have no enchant on. One Piece, Dami House, everything should be divines on this. I am running tri-stat enchants because, like I said, I do use this in Imperial City, and sometimes I have to fight off actual like PvP players. It doesn't always work out, but this is why I have tri-stat enchants on. It's going to give me max health, max mag, and stam, so it's going to make me a little bit more beefier, a little bit more tanky than like a normal like all DPS that just has on like max mag or max stam. So all divines, but every enchant should be tri-stat enchant. We have a heavy helm, heavy chest, so this is Sergeant. Like I said, everything should be divines. And now our second set is going to be Wrath of Orders. Now, like I said, this is a pretty easy beginner setup build, and it still does a ton of damage. So, you know, if you can't get into trials and get the trial gear to make it, you know, have like really like perfected gear and stuff like that, this will hold up and do pretty good damage. So, Wrath of Orders is going to give us 3 lines of critical chance and weapons, 1 line of weapon spell damage, and then increases our critical damage and healing by 8%. So that's pretty huge because not only are we going to be doing 8% more critical damage, but our crit heals from our bird and from the spec bow are going to be nice, and also from the crit surge obviously are going to be bigger. So all around this is nice. And I believe it's 2 heavy and 3 medium and 1 light, so we have a light waist right here. Like I said, everything should be divines. And then for our jewelry, we have the Sergeant, obviously because the Sergeant is a heavy set, so, you know, we want to make sure that we're getting the most damage like that we can. So heavy set, we're going to use the weapon and jewelry and use the medium armor, obviously. Well, it's a crafted set, so you can make whatever you want, but we want medium for the extra crit damage and stuff like that. So weapon and jewelry, everything should be bloodthirsty. And then, you know, weapon and spell damage enchants. And Oaken Soul Ring right here. This is the bread and butter of a 1-bar build. It's going to give us a ton of buffs. And it's going to help us, you know, like I said, just a nice, easy build. You know, you don't got a bar swap and stuff like that. You kind of just, you know, hold down R2 or whatever and, you know, pop your skills when they go off cooldown. Move around when you need to. Stuff like that. I haven't farmed too much Nightmarket on here. I've been doing a lot on PC, but this is the character I'll be using. And yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.